They say heartbreak often comes suddenly, like a car crash. One moment, your life is steady, and the next, you're bleeding in the wreckage. But I've learned the worst kind of betrayal doesn't happen that way. It isn't loud or violent. It's slow, like water dripping through a ceiling crack you never noticed until the whole roof caves in. My name is Marissa Cole. I'm 29 years old, a software engineer. 6 months ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I thought I'd found the man I was going to build everything with. His name was Daniel, and to me, he felt like gravity. We met at a friend's trivia night. He was the loud one, charismatic, the kind of person who never needed to earn attention because it followed him like a shadow. He was always making people laugh, always turning the spotlight into his own personal stage. I was quieter, more grounded, the type to watch the room before speaking. I guess that contrast pulled us together. At first, it was magnetic. He brought color into my structured routines while I studied his chaos. He loved to wander aimlessly at golden hour, dragging me down streets I'd never noticed. I loved lists, plans, goals. He used to say I was the calm to his storm, and I believed him. The beginning really was beautiful. When he lost his job, I picked up the rent without hesitation. I built him a website when he decided he wanted to freelance. I even surprised him with a camera when he claimed he wanted to try photography. I wasn't just his girlfriend. I was his anchor, his safety net. And he used to thank me for it, at first. But slowly the gratitude dimmed. The first cracks showed up in conversations that were framed as jokes. "Monogamy's kind of outdated, don't you think?" he'd say with a smirk. Or, "You wouldn't be mad if I kissed someone at a festival, right? That's not real cheating." I laughed it off in the beginning. Who wants to be the uptight, insecure girlfriend? Except, the jokes kept coming, sharper. He started planting little guilt trips whenever I questioned him. "You're being controlling, Marissa. Don't be so insecure." I wasn't even forbidding him from anything. All I ever did was ask questions. But somehow, even asking became too much. I told myself love was compromise, that maybe I was old-fashioned, that maybe I needed to loosen up. But deep down, I felt something shifting, like the floor beneath me was tilting. The night everything truly broke wasn't dramatic. It was an ordinary Tuesday. We were on the couch watching some mindless reality show. He got up to shower, leaving his Apple Watch on the side table. A notification lit up the screen. I didn't snoop. I didn't need to. One line was enough. "Still thinking about Saturday night? You're unreal." From a woman named Chloe. My stomach dropped so hard I couldn't breathe. My ears rang. The room spun. I just sat there staring at those words as if they'd been carved into my chest. When Daniel walked back in, towel slung around his shoulders, he froze the second he saw me holding his watch. "Who's Chloe?" I asked. My voice wasn't angry, just numb. He blinked, then scoffed. "What are you doing going through my stuff?" "I didn't. It lit up right here." He snatched the watch out of my hands like I'd stolen it. "Jesus, Marissa, that's invasive. She's just a friend." I sat there, my heart hammering, but my face calm. Friends don't send those kinds of messages. He rolled his eyes and turned away. "God, you're so insecure sometimes." I followed him into the bedroom. "Did you sleep with her?" He pulled on a shirt casually, like the question didn't matter. "We hung out. It wasn't a big deal." "You cheated on me," I whispered. "I explored," he shot back. "You and I are too rigid." "Marissa, you never want to talk about non-monogamy, even though I've brought it up like 10 times. You act like some controlling mom from the 50s. I stood there in silence while he twisted the floor out from under me. I thought we were exclusive. I thought we were building something real. But somehow, in his version of the story, I was the one who was wrong. That night, I lay in bed beside him while he slept easily, like nothing had happened. I stared at the ceiling until morning, and for the first time I realized something in me had gone quiet. The love I thought was unshakable was starting to feel like quicksand, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again. By morning, I felt hollow, not broken, not furious, just emptied, like someone had reached inside me during the night and scooped out everything I thought I knew. Daniel hummed to himself as he brewed coffee, as if the night before hadn't happened at all. He kissed my temple lightly when he handed me a mug. His smile was easy, practiced. Maybe he thought I'd already forgiven him, or maybe he thought I never had a choice. I sipped the coffee, nodding like nothing was wrong. Inside, I was done. Something had shifted too far to ever be repaired. The thing about heartbreak is people expect explosions. Slammed doors, screaming matches, maybe tears on the kitchen floor. But mine came in silence. A decision that solidified quietly, like frost forming on a window pane. By noon, while Daniel was at work, I began to plan. I booked a small sublet across town, nothing fancy. Reserved a storage unit. Started making lists. I couldn't bear another confrontation, couldn't stand the idea of him twisting my pain into insecurity again. I didn't need his permission to leave. The next 2 days felt surreal. While he laughed with coworkers at happy hour, I packed up my life piece by piece. Clothes, books, my desk, my guitar. I left behind the things I'd bought for him. The camera, the tripod, the little gadgets he swore would help his creative journey. They weren't mine anymore. They belonged to the man he pretended to be. Every night I lay next to him, pretending to be asleep while his chest rose and fell steadily beside me. And every night I thought about the person I had been when we met, trusting, supportive, hopeful. I mourned her quietly, as if she'd died. On the third morning, once he left for work, I packed the last box and wiped the counters down. I placed a folded note in the center of the kitchen table. "You're free now, just like you wanted. Don't contact me." That was it. No long speeches, no final plea, just the truth. I locked the door behind me and walked out. The silence that followed was deafening. In the sublet, the beige walls pressed in on me. No sarcastic comments drifting from the other room. No random bursts of laughter. No chaos spilling into my quiet. For years, I thought his energy made me feel alive. But without it, I realized I hadn't been living. I'd been surviving in the noise he created. The first few days, I kept waiting for the breakdown. The sobs, the regrets, the frantic urge to run back. They never came. What I felt instead was strange, disorienting calm. I woke up to my own alarm instead of Daniel's scattered schedule. I took long walks without checking my phone. I started lifting weights at a gym nearby, something I'd always put off. I even opened a savings account in my own name. Money that was mine, not ours. At night, I slept deeper than I had in years. The kind of sleep that comes when your body finally stops bracing for the next blow. I didn't block Daniel on everything. Just the obvious channels: phone, Instagram, email. Part of me wanted to see how long it would take before he noticed I was gone. 2 weeks passed before the world around me started whispering his name again. At first, it was a text from a mutual friend. "Hey, not taking sides, but Daniel's been spiraling. Are you okay?" I didn't reply. A few days later, an email appeared in my inbox. Subject line: "I miss you. Please read this." I clicked it open, stared at the words, then closed it without finishing. Then came another, and another, followed by a ridiculous attempt through Venmo. He sent me $1 with a note attached. "I hate how things ended. Can we talk?" I refunded it instantly, my hand steady. And that's when the desperation began to sharpen. After the Venmo stunt, Daniel's attempts grew louder, not directly at first, but through the people orbiting us. A message came from a friend we'd both known for years. "Not sure if you care, but Daniel's been going through it. That girl he was seeing? Total disaster. Ghosted him after a week." I didn't answer. A few days later, another friend chimed in. "He's blowing up the group chat. Everyone's kind of over his drama. Just thought you should know." Reading those updates was like flipping through a book I no longer cared about. But I won't lie. Some part of me felt vindicated. The man who once told me I was too rigid was suddenly abandoned by the people he thought were options. Daniel himself, though, refused to stay silent. One evening, as I walked into my building's lobby after work, I froze. There he was. He leaned against the wall by the elevator, hoodie pulled over his head, arms crossed like some sulking teenager. My stomach knotted, not out of longing, out of unease. When he saw me, he straightened, trying to look casual. "Hey." I didn't respond. I walked toward the elevator, but he fell into step beside me. "You blocked me everywhere," he said, almost accusing. "I did," I replied flatly. "I didn't know how else to get through to you." The elevator doors slid open. I stepped inside, pressing the button without looking at him. He slipped in before the doors closed. "You just disappeared," he continued. His voice cracked slightly. "I didn't expect you to actually leave." I turned my head, meeting his eyes for the first time. "You told me open relationships were normal. I gave you what you wanted? Freedom." His jaw tensed. For the first time, I saw something flicker. Not confidence, not defiance, fear. "I was wrong, okay? I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just figuring myself out." I let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in my chest for months. "You weren't figuring anything out, Daniel. You were stringing me along while you chased attention." "That's not fair," he snapped, but his voice was thinner now. No, what wasn't fair was asking for loyalty while planning your exits. The elevator dinged, my floor. I stepped out, leaving him frozen inside. Marissa, he called softly, almost pleading. I didn't turn back. The doors slid shut between us. That encounter should have been enough, but it wasn't. When direct contact failed, Daniel found new messengers. First, his mother. She emailed me a week later. The subject line, Daniel is hurting. Please don't abandon him. The email was long, dripping with guilt. Paragraphs about how he'd always struggled with relationships, how I was the best thing that had ever happened to him, how a strong woman doesn't walk away when a man is confused. I stared at it, my hands cold. Then I archived it. No reply. Next came his sister, a text from an unfamiliar number. I know he messed up, but you guys had something real. He cries every night. Please give him a chance to explain. I blocked the number. Still, the pressure mounted. It was as if Daniel was building an army of people to fight a war I had already walked away from. But the truth was simple. I wasn't his savior. I wasn't his safety net anymore. And the more desperate he became, the clearer it was that he wasn't mourning me. He was mourning the version of himself that I held together. Daniel's family didn't stop with one message. The silence I gave them only seemed to embolden them, as if they believed persistence could wear me down. A week after I blocked his sister, I came home to find a folded letter shoved under my apartment door. No envelope, no stamp, just paper, written in handwriting I recognized instantly. Daniel. The words inside were messy, rushed, like they'd been scrawled in the middle of the night. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. I wasn't trying to replace you. I was scared. I thought if I had options, I'd feel safer. But all I did was ruin the one person who actually saw me. I miss your mornings. Your coffee. I miss how safe I felt with you. Please, just one chance. A coffee. Let me show you I've changed. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at it. For a moment, I felt that familiar pull, the old reflex to rescue him, to be the steady hand. But then I realized none of those words acknowledged the betrayal. He wasn't sorry for cheating. He was sorry he lost his safety net. I ripped the letter in half and dropped it in the trash. 2 days later, my boss stopped by my desk looking uneasy. Hey, Marissa, weird question. Did you give someone permission to visit you here? My stomach sank. What do you mean? There was a guy in the lobby asking for you, said he was your boyfriend. I closed my eyes, took a slow breath. He's not. Should we call security if he comes back? Yes, I said firmly. He won't be back. At least, he shouldn't be. But the truth was, I wasn't sure anymore. What unsettled me wasn't just his persistence. It was the fact that his family was now enlisted in the campaign. 2 nights later, another email arrived. This time, from his mother again. Daniel is falling apart. He doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. You are the only stable influence he's ever had. Please, Marissa, don't abandon him when he needs you the most. I almost laughed at the irony, as if I hadn't already been abandoned the moment he decided my boundaries were outdated. And yet, there was a heaviness in me. Guilt is a stubborn thing, especially for women who've spent years being told they're responsible for other people's emotions. Was I cruel for cutting him off so completely? Should I have stayed to help him grow, to guide him toward change? The thought lingered, until I remembered the way he'd looked me in the eye and called me insecure, controlling, rigid. The way he'd twisted betrayal into activism. The way he'd stolen my peace and made me question my own sanity. No, this wasn't my burden anymore. Still, his presence hung over me. Even without speaking, he managed to seep back into my life, through letters, through family, through the quiet fear that he might show up again. And I knew deep down that he wasn't finished. I thought maybe the workplace stunt would be the last of it, that surely, after being turned away, Daniel would let go. But men like him don't let go, not when they've built their whole identity on the illusion of control. The breaking point came on a Sunday afternoon. I was meeting a few coworkers for coffee before a movie. The cafe was warm and bustling, laughter bouncing off the walls, the smell of espresso hanging thick in the air. And then I saw him, Daniel, sitting alone by the window with a laptop, headphones dangling around his neck like he belonged there, like he wasn't trespassing in a life he'd already set on fire. Our eyes locked. His face shifted. Surprise. Then something darker. He stood, brushing invisible crumbs from his hoodie, and walked toward me. Marissa, he breathed, as if my name itself was leverage. I gave him a polite nod. My coworkers watched curiously from behind me. One of them, Michael, the new hire I'd grown close to, lingered at my side. Daniel's eyes flicked to him immediately, narrowing before snapping back to me. Can we talk? I stepped aside, keeping just enough distance to make it clear this wasn't a reunion. Briefly. He crossed his arms, trying to look unshaken, but his voice betrayed him. I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, I said quietly. You're just not part of my life anymore. That simple truth hit him harder than any insult could. His mouth opened, then closed again. His jaw tightened. You really think I'm some monster, don't you? I shook my head. No, I think you're selfish, impulsive, and incredibly skilled at dressing up betrayal in pretty language so you don't have to take responsibility. His composure cracked. Wow, so what? You think you're better than me now? No, my voice was calm, unflinching. I know I am. The words landed like a slap. His whole body stiffened, like he hadn't prepared for me to finally stand taller. You've changed, he spat. I have, you helped with that. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The cafe noise swelled around us, the clinking of cups, the hiss of steamed milk, the hum of ordinary life that no longer included him. He tried again, desperation leaking through. I was lost, Marissa. I didn't know what I wanted. You did, I replied. You wanted freedom, attention, options, and you got them. But none of them chose you back, did they? His face faltered. He looked like he'd been exposed in front of the entire cafe, stripped of the illusion that he was desirable, untouchable. You act like I ruined everything, he said bitterly. You did, I said simply. But in a way, you did me a favor. You showed me exactly what to avoid for the rest of my life. He blinked, breathing harder now. His voice dropped to a wounded whisper. You're being so cold. No, I said, steady as stone. I'm being clear. I'm not angry, Daniel. I just don't care anymore. That was the truth, and I think he knew it, because his shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him. So that's it? He asked. You're done with me forever? I met his gaze one last time. I was done the night you looked me in the eye and told me open relationships were normal. You wanted the door open, Daniel. I walked out of it. I turned back to Michael and my coworkers, leaving Daniel standing there among the scattered crumbs of a life he thought he could still control. And that was the last time I ever saw him. After that day in the cafe, Daniel finally disappeared. No more emails. No more letters slipped under my door. No more relatives pleading on his behalf. Just silence. For the first time in years, the silence felt like peace instead of punishment. Life didn't transform overnight, but it did begin to rebuild itself, quietly, steadily. I poured myself into work, and months later, I was promoted to lead a new project team. I picked up a new hobby, boxing, and there was something oddly healing about striking a heavy bag in total silence. No debates, no guilt tripping, just release. I moved into a brighter apartment with a bigger kitchen and windows that flooded the rooms with light. No ghosts lived there. And yes, I started seeing someone new, slowly, carefully. His name was Michael, the same coworker who stood beside me that afternoon in the cafe. He wasn't loud or reckless or intoxicating the way Daniel once had been. He was grounded, steady. The kind of man who asked questions instead of making accusations. The kind who listened more than he talked. One evening, after I told him about my past, about Daniel, he didn't flinch. He just said, "It sounds like you finally chose yourself." And he was right, because it was never about replacing Daniel. It was about removing the version of myself who tolerated him. The part of me that mistook chaos for passion, gaslighting for communication, betrayal for love. That woman was gone, and I didn't miss her. A few weeks ago, I went to an engagement party for an old mutual friend. I almost didn't go, worried about running into Daniel's shadow again. But when I arrived, hand in hand with Michael, I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. The backyard was strung with lights, laughter echoing under the summer night sky. We mingled, drank wine, told stories. For hours, no one even mentioned Daniel. It was as if he'd evaporated from memory. Until he appeared. He came late, alone, his hair shorter, his smile tighter, painted on but never reaching his eyes. He scanned the crowd, and when he spotted me, standing with Michael's arm draped around my waist, he froze. For a second, I thought he might come over, but instead he turned, slowly, and walked the other way. No words, no scene, just silence. And that was when I knew it was truly over. Not just the relationship, but the power he once had, the leverage, the guilt, the way he made me feel like I owed him my silence while he decided if I was enough. That night, Michael and I went home, opened a bottle of wine, and watched a movie. No chaos, no lies, just peace. Sometimes I still think about the note I left behind on that kitchen table. You're free now, just like you wanted. Don't contact me. At the time, I thought it was the bare minimum, but now I realize it was everything. Because freedom without accountability isn't liberation. It's a cage you build for yourself. And as far as I know, Daniel is still trapped in his, me, I'm just living.